Python for data analysis is our next target, and this is the last video of the Python basics. So after this we will start Python for data analysis, where we will be studying NumPy, Pandas and some other libraries to analyze data in Python. And after that series we will have an end-to-end data analysis project from scratch till the end, where we will be doing all the stuff in Python. Let's go. In the previous video we studied mathematical operations, and after that we studied a bit of control structures. Today we are going to study how you can add randomness to our programs, which is useful in games, data analysis and other stuff. Whenever we have a module in Python, we can import that using the import statement like this: import random. Whenever I start typing random, PyCharm is actually suggesting random to us. So let me press tab. This is how we can import a module. This module is not part of this existing program, but it is part of Python itself. So whenever we want to use an external module, we need to import that to our program. So I'm actually importing random module to this program. What random module does, it gives us random numbers. It has already predefined functions and classes and other stuff, which we use in our existing programs to get random numbers from random module. So today let's talk about generating a random number. For example, I can say random, and I can use that random module to generate a random number here. I can say random dot. Whenever I press dot, it gives me all the functions, classes and variables that are available in the random module, and we can use it in our program. So for that, let me say random dot random, and this is a function. So it actually generates a random number between 0 and 1, and it will assign that random number to this random variable. If I hover over this random, PyCharm is giving me the documentation of random function, and it says that x in the interval of 0 and 1. It means it is generating a value that is between 0 and 1, where 0 is inclusive and 1 is exclusive. It means 0 can be one of the possible options in this random number, but 1 is not included here. So let's print this. Let me print rand underscore num variable. If I run this program, you can see it generated 0.1978, something like that. It is a random floating point number that is generated by this random function. As we saw before, that this is generating a random number between 0 and 1. What if we want to see a float random number that is not between 0 and 1, but actually that is between 0 and 10 or 0 and 20? Can we generate such a number or not? Yes, we can do that very easily. We just need to multiply this by that number. For example, if we want a random between 0 and 10, we need to multiply this by 10, and it will give us a number between 0 and 10. Let me run this again, and this time it's giving me 0.82. Run it again, 1.5, 7.6 and so on. So whenever we run this program, it is generating a new random number, and it's assigning that new random number to random variable, and we can print that here. So we use random module to generate random numbers. Now there is another function available to us in the random module, and that's randint, which is generating an integer random value between two numbers that we specify. For example, I can say that random.randint, open and close parentheses, and within this we need to provide two values. For example, I want a random number between 5 and 20. Whenever I run this program, it will generate a new random number between 5 and 20. Let me run this. It's 13. If I rerun this time it's 11. Run again, it's 12, 7, 11 and so on. So it's generating random integer between two values. We will see the actual use of random number generation in lists, which is the next topic, in data analysis and some other lectures. So for now, you need to understand that we use random module to generate random numbers, which can be a floating point random number or an integer type. So let me clean this. The next topic that I want to talk about is a list. List is actually a data structure that contains more values. But in some cases, we cannot assign all the values to a variable. For example, if we have a class of 50 students and I want to store the names of the students in variables, I need to declare 50 variables, which is not a good practice in programming. So for that, we use lists or arrays or some other data structures. But in Python, list is a very useful data structure that can store many values in one list. So let's see that in action. Let me say that we are studying list. For list, we just need to define a list within two brackets. For example, I can say cities. Let me store cities here. It is still a variable, cities, but we need to assign it a list. For defining a list, we need to open bracket and close brackets. And within that opening and closing brackets, we can add values. For example, I can say London, comma, another value, New York, comma, another value. For example, Mumbai, Delhi, Houston, and so on. So I'm adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values in this list. This list can take as many values as we want, and it can also store all the data types at once. It means along with these cities, I can add numbers 20, 40 as well. It can also take floating point numbers like 1.3, and it can also take Boolean values. So in one list, we can assign all the data type values. But for the sake of good practice, we do not need to add these values to this list. We only need cities here. So this is a list that we defined just now. If I print this, print cities, and run this program, we can see that the entire list is printed. We have 5 values in this list. Now, what if we want to access one value of this list at a time? How can we access that? We can access that by using something called an index. Remember that index is the number given to each value in this list. So the index of the first value in a list is always 0. So a list index starts from 0, and for each value it is incremented by 1. So London has an index of 0, New York has index of 1, Mumbai index 2, Delhi index 3, and Houston index 4. Remember that in programming, always index starts with 0. So if I want to access London, opening and closing brackets here, and I can say give me cities of index 0. So this 0 will access London and will print only London here. If I run this again, we can see only London. What if I want to print Mumbai? Then I need to start counting from 0. London is at 0, New York is at 1, Mumbai is at 2. So I can say give me cities 2. If I run this, it gives me Mumbai. So remember that we can access each value of a list by the use of index. We can also add negative index to start from the end. For example, this last item in this list is accessed with a -1 index. If I say city is -1, it will print the last item. That is the last item. If I say -2, it will print Delhi. Let me run this, and we see Delhi. So we have both positive index and negative index in lists. Now the question is, can we set a value in the list that is already available? For example, instead of Mumbai, if I want to add another city name here, can we do that or not? Yes, we can do that. For example, let me first print that. Print cities index 2, which is Mumbai. If I run this, it will print Mumbai for now because we have not changed it. Below this print statement, let me change that. I can say cities. Again, I need to access it with the same index number, that's 2. And in cities 2, I want to assign a new value, and that can be, for example, Kolkata, like this. Now we have changed the value at index 2. If I print the list again, cities 2, it will print Kolkata here. In this print statement we will see Mumbai, but in this print statement we will see Kolkata. Let me run both of them. In the first one we see Mumbai, but in the second we see Kolkata. Even if we print the entire list, that will be changed there. Let me run this. So in the first list you can see there is Mumbai, but in the second one, because we changed it, now we have Kolkata. We can also add new values at the end or at the specific position of a list. For example, if I want to add a new value to this list, I can add it by using a function that is append. Let me first print this list, cities, so we can see the list. Then I want to add another item. I can do that by calling the append function, cities dot append. This is a function. We provided a new value, and this function gets that value here and adds it to the cities at the end. So if I say that add Kabul to this list, it will add it. And let's print that again, print cities. Let me run this. So in the first list, as you can see, we have 5 values, but in the second one, after the append operation, we have Kabul. So Kabul is added at the end of the list. Similarly, what if we want to add Kabul at a specific position? For example, I want Kabul to be the second item. So what I can do is, instead of append, I can insert it. Insert it at position 1, because London is at 0. So the second item will be at index 1. If I run this again, we see Kabul was inserted after London before New York, and all the other items were shifted to the right. So we can use both append and index functions to insert items to the list. We can also add another list to this list. We can extend this list by another list. For example, if I don't want to add only one item, but I want to add 2 or 3 items at the same time, then I can use another function that's called extend, and we can give another list that will be added to this list. For example, I can say cities dot extend, and instead of only Kabul, I can provide it a list. So we need to provide it a list, Kabul, comma, Gujarat, and one more city, for example, Moscow, like this. So we are adding 3 more cities to the existing list. Let me run this. So the first list has 5 values and the second one has 8 values. Kabul, Gujarat and Moscow were added at the end of the list. So this is how we extend the list, by the use of extend function. We can use the len function here as well. You have seen len function on strings, but you haven't seen it on lists. We can use the len function to get the length of a list or the number of items of a list. For example, I don't know how many items are in this list. If I want to get the length, I can say that print length of cities, and this will print the number of items. So that's 5. So we have 5 values, but remember that 5 index is not available, because index starts from 0 till n minus 1. So n is 5, n minus 1 is 4. So the last item is at index 4. So we have 5 items in this list. Now let's use the random module here to pick a random item from this list. What if I want to select a random value from this list? How can I do that? Let's see. For picking up a random value, we first need to import the random module. And as we saw before, we can use the randint function to generate a random number. So let me say that random index, we can say random dot randint. We can manually give it index. For example, start from 0 and go to 4. We can do that, 0 to 4. So it will select any random number between these 2 values, and that will be assigned to random index. And then we can print cities of random index. Whatever random index was generated, we can pass it here, and we can select a city based on that random index. If I run this, it selects London. Let me run it again. this time it's Mumbai, run it again, this time Mumbai again, Delhi, New York, and so on. So this generates a random number between 0 and 4. Now, because we always do not know the number of items in the list, therefore we cannot provide the last index. We always know that the starting index is 0, but we do not know the ending index. So for that we can use the len function. Give me the length of this list, which will give me 5, but the last index is not 5. The last index is 5 minus 1. So we can say length of cities minus 1, and this will give us the last index. So always we can get length of the list, we can add minus 1, and it will give us the last index. So this is a better way for generating a random index between starting and ending indices. So let me run this. So it's worked perfectly and generates a random index for us. Now there is another easy way for doing this. In the random module we have another function that's called choice function, and choice picks a random value from this list. So for doing all this stuff, what we can do is, let me comment this and let me remove this. We can do one thing, we can say random dot choice, and inside this function I can provide the name of the list, cities. So what it does, it selects a random value from the cities list and prints it here. Let me run this. We get London, run again, London, Mumbai, London, Delhi, and Mumbai. So this choice does all the stuff for us that we did manually before. So let me clean this up, and only choice function is enough for picking a random value from the list. Sometimes it happens that we need to add one list inside another list. For example, I want to invite some people to a party. There are my relatives and there are my friends. I want to group them together. Friends are in one group and relatives are in another group, but they both are in the same group of invitations. So I want to add them to different lists, and then I want to group them into one list. In such a scenario, what we can do is to make a list. For example, I can say people to invite. This is the main list, and this will be the list. Inside this list, I can add two more lists. So let me first define the lists. I can say friends. For example, John, Anna, Sam's, Daniel. And then I can say relatives. This is another list. For example, Ginny, Jacob, Marine, Carrie, and one more, Steve. So these are my relatives and these are my friends. What I can do is to provide both of these lists to this list. I can say that friends, comma, relatives. And now this list will be added first to this list because I've assigned friends here, and this relatives list will come second. Let's print all of them. For example, first let's print friends, then print relatives, and then print people to invite. So if I run this program, it first prints my friends, then it prints my relatives, and after that it adds both of the lists inside one list. So this is my friends list, you can see. Then we have a comma, and this is another list of my relatives that is added at the end, and both of them are enclosed in the main list that you can see. Now how can we pick values from this nested list? This list within another list is called nested list. So for that we can use the same method. For example, if I want to print Anna from this people to invite, I can do something like this. Print people to invite. We can see that it has two items. The first item, friends, is at index 0, and the second item relatives is at index 1. So here we can see in the list, in the final list, that in friends we have John at 0 and Anna at 1. So here I want to print Anna. So for Anna I need to go to index 0, and within index 0 I need to go to index 1 because Anna is at 1 to print Anna here. So I can say that give me item from index 0 and then another pair of brackets, and then I can say index 1. So if I print this, you can see that we have all the prints from the previous program, but at the end we have Anna as well. So Anna is taken from the nested list like this. We use the main index from this list, and within that list we can use another index to pick Anna from here. If I want to print Marine, what I can do is to go to people to invite, relatives is at index 1 and Marine is at index 2. So I can just simply say index 1 and 2. Let me run this and we have Marine printed. So this is how you use indexes and nested lists. Now that we understand list and random numbers, let's move on to the next topic, that is loops. Most of the times while writing programs, we perform one task more than one times. We perform it 3 or 4 or 5 times or n number of times. For that, loop is a useful concept to use. We have two types of loops in Python. One is called a for loop and another is called a while loop. Let's see both of them in action. So for example, I want to loop through this list and print all the values in one go. If I want to print every value separately and I add print statement for each one of them, that will make my program bigger and very tough to understand. So for this purpose, we can just use a for loop to pick all the items and print it to the screen. So what I can do is to say for, remember this is the syntax, city and cities, then I can add a colon and then here I can write the block of statements. Block of for loop. Remember this is the same block that we saw in the if statements. We can add as many statements here as we want, like this. So we can add as many statements in this block as we want, and all those statements will be related to for because they are indented according to the for loop body, like this. You can see a line here. So these statements belong to the for loop block. Here we declare a temporary variable by the name of city. Whenever a for loop runs, in each iteration of the for loop, one item is taken from the cities list and that is assigned to this city temporary variable. Whenever this loop runs and it goes for another iteration, it picks up another value from this list and assigns it to this city temporary variable. This loop actually executes like in a circle. So first it picks a value from cities, assigns it to city, then comes to this block of code, executes all the statements, goes back to this city, picks up another item, assigns it to city, comes back to this body, executes all the statements, goes for another iteration, picks up Kolkata, assigns it to city, and this way it goes to all the list and picks all the values one by one and assigns the values to city, and after that the block executed. So let's print all the values in this cities list. So I can say print city. If I run this program, we will see that all the cities are printed one by one. So New York is the first value taken from lists assigned to city, and here we say print city. So it prints New York. In the next iteration, when the for loop goes back to cities, it gets Mumbai and assigns it to city. So this time it prints Mumbai. Same goes for all the other values. So this is the simplest loop that we can use, and this is the simplest way to print all the values from a list. Remember that, as I said before, we can add as many statements here in the for loop block as we want. For example, I can say another thing. I can just declare a variable like x, assign it values 10 plus 5 or 4, and then I can print x each time this iteration is running. So if I run this again, For New York 14, Mumbai 14, Kolkata 14, like this. This was just an example. So we can add as many statements as we want in the for loop block. We have another function in Python that provides a range of values to us, and we can use for loop with the range function to get values from a range. For example, we can say that give me a range of values from 0 to 10, or give me a range of values from 15 to 50, or give me a range of values from 0 to 100 and move by 3 or 4 steps in each iteration. Let's see them in action. And we will be using this range function in a lot of places in the coming programs. So I can say go to for, and here the temporary variable we can assign it anything, but let me call it x in range function, and in this range I can say that go from 0 to 5. Remember, whenever we provide one value, it automatically starts from 0 and goes to 5, but 5 is again not included, so it will go to 4. And here if I print x in each iteration will have a new value. In the first iteration it will get 0 from range, in the next iteration it will get 1, then 2, 3 and 4. Let's run this and we can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So range function is giving us a range. Now if we want to pick a range of our choice, not from 0 to 5, for example, if I want to have a range of 1 to 10, I can do that as well. So we need to specify these values 1 to 10. This time if I run this program, it will print 1 to 9 because 10 is not included again. The last one is always not included. What if I want to print from 1 to 10, but I want to take 2 steps in each iteration? The third argument in this function is the step. We can provide the step. For example, I want to jump 2 steps in each iteration. So if I run this, it will print 1, then 3, 5, 7 and 9. So this is how we use range function in Python. Now that we understand lists, ranges and for loops, let's work on a cricket example. So we have a list of scores by different players and I want to calculate the total score of the team. So I can say that scores, let me create the list first. For example, the first person scored 2, the next player scored 120, then 40, then 10, 5, 0, 9, 12 and 0, and at the end the last person scored 1, like this. And another one was not out on 3. So we have 11 players and we have 11 scores in this list. Now I want to sum all the scores and get the total of the team. So what I can do is to declare a variable sum, and at first it will be 0 because we have not calculated this. And now I can run for score and scores colon. Remember, this does not need to be a score. You can name it anything like I, A, B, C or anything. I'm just naming it score because it is a meaningful thing. And we understand that in every iteration, this will pick up a score from the scores list and will assign it to the score variable. So it's a meaningful variable name, that's it. So for score and scores, what I can do is to add that to the existing value of sum, score, and then assign the total to the sum variable. So in each iteration, score will get the new value from the list, will add it to the existing value of sum, and then will assign the total back to the sum variable. It will calculate the total of this list, and then at the end we can print the sum variable like team total is, let me make it an if string that we studied in the previous lesson, and then say this is sum. If I run the program, it says that team total is 202. So this is how we use for loops for getting all the values from the list. Now that we understood for loop, let's work on while loop. While loop is the same thing as for loop, but it works on a condition and it will run as far as the condition is true. For example, if we say while true and print something, this while loop will run forever because always we are passing it true. We are not making any condition where this true can be false. So whenever this condition is true, this will print something. So for example, I can say if I have variable a and it has value 5, then I can say that while a is less than 10, you need to print a. So I can say that print a, and after this print I can say add 1 to the existing value of a, because if I do not increment this, I do not put a 1 into a, this a is less than 10, this will always be true. So for each iteration when a is printed, I want to increase a by 1. So in the first iteration if it's 5, in the next iteration it will be 6, then 7, 8, 9, and when it becomes 10, then that 10 will make this condition false and while loop will stop here. So let me run this. You can see 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. 10 is not printed because we said it should be less than 10. So whenever the condition in the while loop is true, it will run, and whenever the condition becomes false, it will stop running. Let's work on a real example where we will ask the user to give us an input of a positive number. So if the number that we get from the user is greater than 0, we will run the while loop. But if it is 0 or less than 0, negative number, then we will stop the while loop. So let's get the number. We can use the input function, enter a positive number, and we will get the number from the user. So let's convert that to integer. Now we can say that while this number is greater than 0 that we take from the user, then print the number. So you can say print number. After that we need to get the number again. So let me copy that statement and print it here as well. So it will run again and we'll get another number. So let me run this. Enter number, for example 2. It's printed. Enter number again, for example 4. Printed 10. And if I give it a 0, it stops. So this is how we run a while loop in Python programming. Let's now work on a real game. For example, we will generate a random number and then we will ask the user to guess that random number. We'll give the user 3 attempts so they can guess the random number. If they can guess it, we will congratulate the user. If they cannot guess it, we will end the program. So let's do that. Let's first import random module because we will be generating random number, and let's say this is a secret number. Let's generate random.rand int between 1 and 10. Let's declare 2 variables. Attempts is 0, user had not made any attempt, and max attempts we can say will be 3 because we are giving the user only 3 chances to guess. When the number is generated, we will ask the user to guess the number. So we can say print guess the number between 1 and 10, like this. And let's not make it a print, let's make it an input and assign that guess variable like this. So let's make it integer. This should be run in the while loop. So we can say while attempts is less than max attempts, then we need to run this statement. Let me give it indentation so it becomes in the block of the while loop. Now we are saying that whenever attempt is less than max attempt, it means whenever a user has not reached the maximum level of attempts, they can guess this. So guess the number between 1 and 10, and we are assigning that to guess. Now let's check whether they have guessed the correct number. So if guess is equal to secret number, then they have guessed the right number. We can say print congratulations, you have guessed the correct number. And whenever a user guesses the right number, then we need to stop this loop. For stopping this loop, we have a keyword that is break. Whenever we use this break statement, it will automatically stop this while loop and it will break out of the loop. So whenever a user has guessed the right number, we need to print this statement and break out of the loop. Else, if they have not made the right guess, then what we need to do is to increase attempts by 1. So you can say attempts is equal to attempts plus 1, because in the first attempt, when they are wrong, then we need to increase it to 2. So it means they have made 2 attempts, 3 attempts, and that's it. So let's go out of the loop, and at the end we can say if attempts is equal to max attempts, then we can say print sorry, you lost the game. So here what we do is, let me repeat this. First of all, we are just generating a random number between 1 and 10, and we are assigning that random number to secret number. Then we declare 2 variables, attempts 0 because they have not made any attempts, and max attempts 3. So while attempts is less than max attempts, it means whenever they have not made 3 attempts, then we are giving them the chance to guess the number between 1 and 10. So if they can guess the number correct, we can say that. So if guess is equal to the secret number, then we congratulate the user and we tell them that they have guessed the correct number, and then we are breaking out of the loop. If they have not made the correct guess, then in the else block we can say that increase the attempt. It means attempt was first attempt, now it will be second attempt, third attempt, and that's it. Whenever for loop ends, if they have made 3 attempts and they have not guessed the right number, then we can say that sorry, you lost the game. If I run this program, let's see. First of all, it says guess the number between 1 and 10. So let me give it a colon and space so you can understand it properly. Guess the number between 1 and 10. We do not know which number is selected by Python in the secret number. So we can say let me guess 2. It means we have not guessed the right number. Guess 5. Incorrect. 7. So we lost the game. So we do not know what number was selected by Python. Let me print that for a cheating. Print secret number. So we can cheat the game. If I run this, okay, that is 7. So let me select 3 first, that's wrong. 5, that's wrong. If I guess 7, they say congratulations, you have guessed the correct number. So in both cases, the program works perfectly. Whenever we guess the correct number, they congratulate us. But if we do not guess the correct number in 3 attempts, then they say that sorry, you lost the game. So let me remove this print. It was a cheating, and that's it. Now that we have almost covered all the basics that we needed for the data analysis series, after this video we are going to start the data analysis series in Python with different libraries like NumPy, Pandas, and some other libraries in Python. At the end, we are going to have a project in Python that will be an end-to-end data analysis project, and we'll do that together. If you are getting value from this video, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. If you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comments and we'll be there to answer your questions. Thanks for watching.